Over the course of generations, there are games that surprise and inspire players. Games that manage to stand the test of time as some of the greatest games of all time. This is not one of those games. I'm talking about Frogger. Now this ain't your daddy's Frogger where you're hopping across the street to get run over by a car. This is Advanced Frogger. And no, not the Game Boy Advance game. I'm talking about Frogger, the Great Quest on PS2. Now come here, let me tell you about it. A little closer. A little closer. A little closer. Ah, it's too close! Frogger, the Great Quest came out in 2001 and was developed and published by Konami. The game was known as the first of its kind for Frogger, being the first 3D platformer in the series. The game's plot is pretty straightforward, beginning with Frogger overhearing a story from two abnormal-looking children with huge heads and menacing eyes of how a frog transformed into a prince after being kissed by a princess. So of course, we must join Frogger on his adventure to search for some tail in the world across the Third Kingdom.
That's it! A wish upon a falling star. I wish I may, I wish I must find a princess before I bust.
Oh, what? He wishes upon a falling star to find a princess for his selfish needs. This ends up working, making the fairy frog mother appear, granting him 3 gifts. 1, he can see magic and magical creatures, which is never defined considering he's a walking, talking frog. 2, a magic bag that can hold all things magical. And 3, what sounds like battle protection. But basically, she just says Frogger cannot die while on his search for, as she puts it, Princess Hot Lips.
Now you cannot die while in pursuit of Princess Hot Lips.
Wow! Bust! 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 Bust!
And so the game begins, as Frogger goes in search of the princess across the various worlds of the kingdom. And this is when we soon come to realize that the phrase first 3D platformer should be taken very literally. If you're a fan of 3D platformers or even played a few, you may know the feeling of fun and accomplishment when the physics and level design come together as one solid product, allowing you to improve and get better over time. You see this in games like Mario 64, Crash Bandicoot, Banjo-Kazooie, all games that brought unique gameplay to the platforms and set a standard before this game ever came out. This game's controls, however, are shit. When standing still in the game, Frogger performs a delayed jump, similar to how a frog jumps. I see what they were going for, but it is agonizing when all you want is a responsive jump and you get this.
Jump, Frogger!
Do you see what I mean? Controlling Frogger just doesn't feel good, and I usually found myself slipping off platforms and not landing jumps because of the restricted camera. You can center it by pressing L2, but you don't have a free-moving camera with the right analog stick. What saves the platforming, however, is the float ability. If you double tap and hold the X button after jumping, you can float, which is life-saving sometimes when you don't want to redo poor platforming sections. Now let's move on to combat here. My man Frogger has 2 moves in his arsenal. When you're close to an enemy, you press square to perform Frog Fu, which looks how it sounds.
Oh goody, it's slashing time.
With you.
As well as spitting frog goobers. Gross. This is the move you want to use 100% of the time because you can lock on and hit enemies from a distance. Frog Fu connects about 20% of the time. It might be the worst feeling combat I've ever experienced in a video game. There are also 3 abilities in this game which are magic stones, and you can pick these up around the world. The Fire Stone lets you shoot fire goobers. The Ice Stone works like a grenade and is probably the worst ability. And the Speed Stone pretty much speeds Frogger up ×2, so everything he does is faster. Which is great, because I wanted to finish that game as fast as possible. Okay, so we have a basic rundown of the combat, right? You might be thinking, why the hell would you ever play a game this bad? Well, you freaking goober, let me tell you. What this game does have going for it is some pretty nice environments and pretty great music. Just listen to the title screen. It really puts you in the mood for this mystical setting that feels sort of eerie and unsettling, and I think that's what makes this game stick out. Most of the characters and NPCs in this game can be creepy and weird. When I was a kid, I never even got past the 3rd level of the game, because the boss battle with Slick Willy freaked me out. I mean, just look at this guy.
You wanna be lunch?
Yikes! I know frog foo!
The game can be really strange at times, and I think that's what helped it be so memorable to me. It really goes all over the place with the mystical setting. You'll see goblins, fairies, a dragon that talks like Sean Connery.
So give me a chance to share my riddle with you. I know so many, but I tell so few. Now run, little one. I am ready to chase you now!
And the game seems to keep doing interesting things to keep you going. There's a level where a werewolf monster chases you through the woods, the level after that takes you to some mad scientist's lab, and the level after that takes you to some underground caverns to meet Count Blah the vampire. Did I mention this was a 4-hour game? And thank God, because if I would have played this for 1 more hour, I think I would have...
Bust!
And look, I think the short length definitely helps the game, because honestly, it's not that fun to play through. The gameplay isn't good, but it does have character to it. It has something that made me want to come back and play it again. I also think the soundtrack complemented each level pretty well. It's not fantastic, but it definitely sticks out and gives the game an interesting feel you wouldn't expect from a kid's game. The voice acting is a mixed bag in this game. I can't decide if I like it or hate it. How about I just give you some examples and you can decide for yourself.
Follow the trail down the hill till you get to Slick Willy's old riverboat.
Okay, barefoot. I'm on it.
Now just plop on down that there smokestack, hop in my speedboat, and fire that puppy up. You'll be in Rivertown before you know it.
Ah, I see we have a visitor. Welcome to my laboratory. Curiosity killed the froggy.
This frog is on a quest to find the princess.
What? So, UCK princess.
Come out, wherever you are. You little slime bucket.
What's the matter? You chicken?
No, Hemo. He just tastes like one.
So throughout the levels you can collect a variety of coins and gems which add up to a point total for each level. After the level is finished, you can use these to buy bios and concept art at the Frog store. You can look at these in the pause menu and after the game is over via the save game. But you can't replay levels, so if you really want them, you'd have to play through the whole game again. And make sure you get enough coins after each level. And that just sounds awful. Overall, the game is an interesting little ride through what seems like someone's bad acid trip. And I honestly really like that. It's weird, the characters are unsettling, and the music really gives it a vibe. The worst part is the gameplay itself, and at the same time, it's a 4-hour game. Would I play this game again? No. Would I recommend someone play this game? No. It's not exactly a rare gem, but it's something fun to take a look back at. Shout out to user PunkRules on the website Instructables.com. Frogger is a blue disc and would not read on my fat PS2, so he had a tip on placing a couple pieces of tape on the top of your disc, and that somehow made it work like a charm. I'll share the link in that below, and yeah, if you have a blue disc that won't work, try that out, because thankfully it let me make this video. Hey girls and goobers, subscribe to my channel for more videos. Coming up.